This is another example of a hypothetical paradigm from a particular instance dealing with Andrew Words, the Andrew Words article. And I want to show you the strengths of this essay and why it's an A essay. Now, it's going to have some surface level problems like that and like this misspelling. So this is not perfect. And, perhaps there was a little bit in the grade that I took off because some of this stuff needs to get fixed. All right. But this student is showing me that he or she knows how to do what I'm asking you all to do. And the first thing I want to point out is the length is sufficient. Okay, so I've got one section here, a decent section. I got a more developed section following. I've got a very clear third section. And I've got the closing example here. And it's the length is sufficient and a little bit beyond. So that's the very basic thing I look for. Now I need the student to start off with a little more specificity. I do get the name, right? But I would like to know how the student knows about Andrew Words. So I need a mention of the article and what, was it CNN? Was it NBC? Was it Fox News? I mean, what type of article was it? That sort of thing. But now, if you want to see this on a larger scale, expand your screen. If you want to read it, just pause and read this, and then I'll scroll down a little bit. The summary is decent. Is presumed dead after explosion. He had recently been released from jail, met with an eviction notice. Okay, back in 2005, had started to raise chickens in his home. One thing led to another, and other livestock. Then he got a citation. So, we get a summary here. I think it might be better arranged, but nevertheless, it does the job, all right? Because, the student knows enough about how to write a summary that he or she is not rewriting the article. She's trying to pick, the major events and just give us a sort of a capsule picture of it. Now look at the way this student shows how the expansion happens. Back in 2005, when it would seem most of Mr. Word's problems began, they started out very small and personal. Okay, so small, personal. He wanted to raise chickens, unusual perhaps, but it was not a problem until his neighbors complained. Then it was a small conflict, still very personal. He knew his neighbors, they knew him. All they really wanted was to not get woken up at the crack of dawn by a rooster, right? It could have been solved over coffee or a neighborhood meeting, but it wasn't. It escalated to the city giving Mr. Woods a citation. The conflict was becoming bigger and more legalistic than it was personal. So, the student is also pointing out that it's expanding, the conflict is expanding and changing in various ways. The opponent is changing, all right? Also, the element of money was now being introduced into the mix. Very good, very good. This is true. Money does come in. Yes, the city doesn't want noisy animals, but getting rid of them wouldn't have been enough. Now they wanted money. When the problem with the court, it received media attention, and the World Wide Web truly does go worldwide. When the case was dismissed, the city started making rules about livestock. Okay. Now I think the ending of this section could use a little bit more work, but the expansion and the type of conflict that the type of change, morphing the conflict goes through is very well described here. All right, good job there. Now let's see this next one. So what might our pattern be in the scenario? When I see that sort of sentence, it's very clear to me, the reader, what the writer wants to do. So I like that sort of verbal tracking or mapping. All right, it's giving me signs. It's telling me what's going to happen. We have an average person who chooses to do something unusual. The personal conflict arises out of that. People begin to complain. And the degree of animosity develops. Likely out of spite, the person goes even further and the conflict grows. And the authorities get involved. First they ask nicely, but then they use gentle force, and then at this point for the individual, it's not really about continuing what they're doing, it's about winning the argument. Now if you read this, if you pause this video and read this, you'll see that this student is really trying to draw out a pattern. That's not really tied to Andrew Words. That's what happened on this section above up here. This one is trying to abstract or generalize the pattern, all right? And then the student ends with an example, Trayvon Martin incident, all right? Excellent job in its essence. Now, again, there was some surface level stuff, but, I'm not going to take off too much from that because I see the student really excels in the deeper problem, the deeper skill, the deeper issue. That's of writing this basically well. So I probably would give this around a 3.7 or a 3.8, which is a strong A.